It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week, starring... What the hell are we doing? Pick the best ominous tension cues on today's Taxi TV. Sounds like a plan to me. Thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Hello, real audience. How are you guys? I hope everybody had a great weekend. Wow, a lot of people in there. Hi, folks. I want to let you know before we go any further in today's show, I'm going to screw stuff up. Why? Because I've got an ear infection, a tooth infection, ear infection, and it's even like up in my eye and makes my face all weird. So I'm on antibiotics, and I'm probably going to be hitting the Advil. As a matter of fact, I'm getting the stash out now because it hurts. And I feel weird from the antibiotics. And I'm, what do you call it? Vertigo. I'm spinning. Look at all these people in here. Holy crap, holy. So this is going to be interesting today. Bria's in here across the desk from me, and she's playing DJ, and she did some research. We ran a listing. I'm going to read you the listing. What our goal today is to... play tension cues from this listing. We got 224 submissions. Of those, 65 were forwarded to the company that was looking for stuff. And we're going to play 10 things that Bria randomly picked that were forwarded and 10 that were not. And I'm going to not tell you what's what. And this is, again, a little ear tuning exercise for you guys. I'd love to have you guys listen to stuff because I think it becomes more obvious to you what works and what doesn't when you're critiquing somebody else's stuff. So that's the plan for today. By the way, just to give you a little heads up early in the show. Oh, one thing I always forget to do early in the show. There you go. Subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. More importantly, share. Click that share button and send our show to somebody. Yeah, all that stuff is good. YouTube loves it. Anyway, I was trying to come up with a plan for next week's show, and I realized I haven't had you guys suggest ideas for a show in a while. So before we go any further, make a note to yourself on a Post-it or a scrap of paper laying around that at some point during the show or shortly thereafter, would you go to our Facebook page and post your ideas for next week's show. The one thing I need you to consider, though, is answering one question does not a 90-minute show make, so I need topics that are big enough that we can elaborate somewhat. So there you go. Your ideas next week's show. Okay, so pick the best ominous tension cues. And frankly, I wouldn't want to be the A&R person on this because it's tough. These are, you hear something, go, okay, that's pretty ominous, but you have to listen for a while to the cue to really understand if it's going to be something that would be good for the party that ran the listing. So let's listen to what the listing said. Dark, ominous tension instrumental cues are needed quickly by a very busy non-exclusive music library that's building new playlists for TV promos on 2 popular cable networks. So this was for a specific need, not just like I'd like to stick some new cues in my library. They actually had 2 different cable networks that were working on a batch of TV promos at each network, and they needed cues. They're looking for mid to up-tempo instrumental cues in the general stylistic ballpark of these references. And the references, which I can't play or they would mute my audio on YouTube, technically missing by Trent, Reznor, and Atticus Ross, who I think are some of the best at doing this style of cue. Unraveling by Harry Escott, and Imperfect look by the one, the only, the incomparable Hans Zimmer. Note, typically we would send this type of listing out to our Taxi Dispatch members. Dispatch is an upgraded part of Taxi that was originally designed to do quick turnaround stuff, and then the whole industry basically became quick turnaround. But we noticed a pattern amongst our Dispatch members that they were most frequently and rapidly submitting to instrumental cues. So we just basically started running. Yes, we still run stuff that's quick and needs a fast turnaround in Dispatch, but we also run some of our favorite instrumental cues through there because we know that the people that sign up for Dispatch are amongst our most experienced members in doing that stuff, and they like to submit to those. So typically we'd send this type of listing out to our taxi dispatch members. Because our client needs a lot of material in a short time period, we decided to send this request out to all of our members and make sure we could find this company enough great material in the time frame they need it. Give them dark, ominous instrumental cues that deliver a gloomy, menacing vibe with engaging rhythms and unique electronic and/or orchestral instrumentation. Please stick to a singular motif throughout your cue to keep it emotionally and melodically consistent from beginning to end. One scene equals one mood. Really important. Some people try and score an entire film to show how talented they are, but they really should stick with just one mood. Don't try to score an entire. Well, there you go. Don't try to score an entire film in 90 seconds. Please avoid submitting anything that's overly busy, frenetic, or bombastic. Less is definitely more for this request. Taxi tip. Your instrumental cues for this pitch can be almost drone-like, but should have a bit more forward movement than a typical drone. So notice it says almost drone-like. It doesn't say make a drone. It says almost drone-like. So in other words, you could have a droney sound in there, kind of a droney mood, but almost drone. Because I think we might have even run, for this client, we may have run listings that were just purely for drones, but I could be wrong. Typical, a bit more forward movement than typical drone. Drones tend to lay there like a lox. These things were meant to have a little forward movement. I think you'll understand that when we start listening to it. Your submission should be at least 90 seconds long. Non-faded endings will work best. Please do not copy the reference examples in any way, shape, or form. Use them only as a general guide for tempo, texture, tone, and overall vibe. Broadcast quality is needed, of course. Great sounding home recordings are fine. This company offers a non-exclusive 50-50 deal. While these TV promos will generally not pay upfront sync fees, we were told that by the company. Promos usually get lots of plays and rack up some pretty healthy performance royalties. You'll get 100%. So I don't need to read all that stuff. But the bottom line is we got 224 submissions and we had 65 forwards. So while you guys are listening to the first one, and I'm not going to mention, we only are playing stuff that was already selected on the taxi website as being public, meaning anybody could stumble on it and listen to it. So we're only playing publicly, or stuff that was allowed to be public, but I'm not going to mention the composers' names because I don't want to embarrass anybody. If their cue wasn't ready for prime time, we don't need to beat them up over that publicly, but we do want to learn. So we're going to listen to first one. I will give you the titles. It is called It's Alive. Let's have a listen. All right, so cast your votes. If you guys would forward that for the aforementioned request, type in a +1. If you would not forward that, type in a -1. I want to see how your ears line up with our taxi A&R staff. Carrie Cox is asking a question. How much do you guys think about instruments that would be in the same range as a voiceover, for instance, or the human voice, period, but more particularly in promos, it's usually a voiceover. If it's something that produces a lot of activity, common sense would tell you, like a saxophone. Let's talk about a sax playing a lead line in the middle of a promo. That would probably conflict. If it's a synth pad that's in there, not so worried about it. I used to mix a ton of audio post, a ton, like for years, and at a very high level, if I do say so myself. And you know what? Sometimes you get a piece that had an instrument that would compete. It also depends. Is it a female voiceover? Is it a male voiceover? Was the copy being read quickly? Was it, close and intimate on the microphone? Was it big and boomy, broadcasty from 2 feet away? So there's a lot to consider. But the bottom line is you could just simply roll off a little bit of, like 2K or 2.2K in the mix, and usually that would eliminate the competition between the voice and the music. However, if it's a saxophone doing yakety sax stuff, whole different story. Bria is tabulating. Do you need a calculator?
No, I don't need a calculator. I'm just counting them.
Okay. You're welcome, Carrie. I gotta say, I like the speed of the chat room. Seems to be a little bit faster with YouTube, which is nice for me on the broadcaster end.
Okay, so we have 42 that would forward it and 7 that would return it.
Okay, 42 that would forward, 7 that would return. The forward people are correct. You guys line up with what the screeners did. That one got a forward. Okay, let's go to number 10 on the list, which is called Touchdown. And of course I'm playing that because of yesterday's awesome football games. Well, one of them was awesome. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, type in a +1 if you would forward that for somebody who needs music for an ominous TV promo. Remember, these are not for scenes for TV shows. Frankly, there's a difference between music that, not 100% of the time, not even maybe the majority of the time, but it's not infrequent that music that is used in promos has a little different vibe, feel, character than music that's used in a scene for a TV show. Marion Laird says she's undecided. I see. Peter Rahill says switch and bait, bait and switch. Peter Rahill couldn't dance to it. I can't dance to anything. It's funny, I see people commenting about, could have had more bass, needed more something. The editors, gosh, I wish all you guys were in the room when we had Laurel, what was her name? Anyway, we had an awesome video editor, did a thing at the Road Rally last year, and it just deepened my perception and understanding of so much. You realize video editors don't think about, well, I wish it had more bottom end. They really don't. They are all about, does it move my scene forward? Does it amplify the emotion? They don't worry about stuff like compression or even the mix sometimes. They're really not that audio oriented. It's much more visceral, and does it accomplish a goal for them? And if you saw this young lady, you would go, wow, she really knows her stuff. She was impressive. All right, so what was the total?
So 6 would forward it and 38 would return it.
Wow. 6 would forward, 38 would return it. Guess what? Peter Rahill was right. Oh, that was supposed to be clapping, damn it. Rahill was right. Rahill, you said you were in the minority. It was actually forwarded. And I saw people saying, well, it needs more forward movement and stuff. It was in there. It was in there. But yes, I did throw a bait and switch at you guys, because I think everybody thought, well, he's going to do a forward, then he's going to do a return. Nope, I'm way sneakier than that. So, all right, here we go on yet another one. Let's go. By the way, I haven't heard any of these. Let's go with Ghost Ship. I think Jennifer Wilcox might need to see a professional. She says that was almost uplifting. I don't know, Jennifer. Uplifting? Anyway, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that. If you could hear "In a World" on top of that, forward that sucker. If you didn't hear "In a World" on top of that. And by the way, that sound you hear, that's the fan in my computer, my laptop cranking, because apparently this program that we use to broadcast this show makes the CPU work extra hard, even though we've tried just about everything to eliminate that. Another interesting thing to note about these, by the way, or the use thereof, is in most cases they're not going to use the entire thing. You know, I mean, a promo is not going to be whatever that one was, 3 minutes or 2 minutes and 48 seconds long. Promos are going to be 30, 60, sometimes 90 seconds, but they're not going to be, 2 minutes, 3 minutes long. A trailer for a movie would be, but generally not a promo for a TV show. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are 30s because they're just taking the space that a paid commercial would take. Hey, Scott Hansen, how are you? When's your thing going to be on? Scott Hansen has something on NCIS, right? It's NCIS.
New Orleans, I think.
Oh, New Orleans. Okay. There we go. Taxi TV friends. Tomorrow night's episode of NCIS New Orleans, they'll be featuring one of my songs, "Baby, Don't You Love Me No More." Show starts at 9 o'clock Eastern Time and Pacific Time, 8 o'clock Chicago Time. See that? We could play a promo under there, some promo music. All right, got a total? Okay, Bria's adding them up. That was called Ghost Ship, by the way. I think I said that.
So I had 21 would forward it and 26 would return.
Wow. 21 would forward, 26 would return it, and it was in fact a forward. Told you these are hard. Doesn't mean our screeners are right 100% of the time, but I would say high 90s, like 95, 98% of the time. Just for those of you who are new to Taxi or new to Taxi TV, a lot of times somebody will get a little ticked off because their piece doesn't get forwarded by Taxi, and they'll go make kind of state a public case about it on our forum. And I would say over watching that forum for what I think has been 12 years, 14 years, something like that, I would say 98 to 99% of the time when people go on there and go, "Do you believe the screener didn't forward this piece?" Ultimately, the crowdsourcing, if you will, tends to vote with the screeners. So I have a pretty high confidence level. Wow, Peter Rahill got another one right. Good job, Peter. All right, let's go to one that's called Ominous. It's... okay. This is Ominous. Wow, we're getting some buffering on their end. All signals are good over here. 6 bars. Hold your wrist out, Costa. All right, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward, -1 if you were not. Pedro Costa's hand is still smarting because gave me a... Do you know, speaking of cruel things teachers do to children while in grade school, I once got busted for something in grade school. Oh, I couldn't spell the word toward correctly. I kept leaving the S off. My second grade teacher, Mrs. Warner, may she burn in hell, took pencils, put them on the floor where each of my knees were. Now, mind you, how old are you in second grade? 6 years old or something? And she made me kneel on the pencils and stay that way for the rest of the day. That would be a lawsuit now. Mrs. Warner, I hope you're enjoying the heat down there. Seriously, that would be a lawsuit today.
Yeah, but you're right.
And she was basically a nice lady. A little on the strict side.
That's just how they did it back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you can't do that now. Couldn't even do that when I was in grade school. If you put a plus and a minus, it doesn't count.
Who did that?
Someone put +1.
Indecisive, I get it. That's right, tortured by pencils, you got it. And you guys wonder why I am the way I am. It's the pencils, damn it. The pencils, I tell you. Peter Rahal is obviously a linguist with a large lexicon. He says, no need for an S. Toward is no different than towards. That was torture. Sherry Marcus Milano says it was torture. Yeah, well, she took me out back and waterboarded me after that.
Okay.
I went to Abu Ghraib Elementary School. Okay. But at least they were number 2 pencils, so it was soft lead.
All right.
You have some numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So 7 people said that they would forward it, and 33 said they would return it.
All right. Those 33 would, 7 people would forward, 33 would not, and the 33 people who would not were correct. Somebody just pointed out in the chat room that some of the percussion sounded like footsteps. It did. It was a cool effect. It just wasn't really right. It didn't make it feel like it was moving forward. It was a distraction, but it was kind of cool. Ticonderoga, Peter. Yes, they were Ticonderogas. Every time I see the color yellow, unless it's in the context of a cab, freaks me out. Okay. It was cool. We're making progress. How are we doing on time? Not bad. All right, let us listen to Boot Kill. That's an interesting title. No, it wasn't forwarded, that last one. I love the chat room. special effects. That was me, air drumming. Thank you, Code 226, for the fan control suggestion. I've actually looked at SMCC fan control, but it had me a little worried because if I control the fan too much, what if I fry my CPU? So I don't know. I'm on the fence. And some weeks it does it, some weeks it doesn't. Anyway, so that one was called Boot Kill. And while you guys are voting on that, +1 if you would forward that, -1 if you would not, I'm going to distract you by reading the listing one more time. Dark, ominous tension instrumental cues are needed quickly by a very busy non-exclusive music library that's building new playlists for TV promos on 2 popular cable networks. They're looking for mid to up-tempo instrumental cues in the general stylistic ballpark of these references, which I can't play or YouTube may mute the show. Let's see, give them dark, ominous instrumental cues that deliver a gloomy, menacing vibe with engaging rhythms and unique electronic and/or orchestral instrumentation. That's my word. Instrumentation. Please stick to a singular motif throughout your cue to keep it emotionally and melodically consistent from beginning to end. So, while you're casting your votes, did that have electronic and/or orchestral instrumentation? I kind of remember hearing some acoustic guitar in there. Did it stick to a singular motif? Nah. It had some really cool stuff in there. Okay, looks like the voting is pretty much over. And Marion Laird, I'm whipping out the ruler for you because you gave it a +1 just because. You can't do that. If the screeners did that, I'm not going to forward it just because. Or I'm going to forward it just because. I don't think we'd be worth our salt. So you got to give it those professional industry ears, and you can't even forward stuff based on your own personal preference. Does the screener like it, just generally like it because subjectively they like it? They can only like it when they're listening to music for a taxi listing if it fits what the listing asks for. Because if we send stuff to the listing party that's really cool but not on target for what they need, the fantasy of, oh, they're just going to hear how awesome it is and they're going to rewrite the script or re-edit the show or change their plan and put my piece of music in, they're going to change their whole world around my piece of music. That is magical thinking, and we don't allow magical thinking. So, got a number?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
13 said they would forward it, and then 30 said that they would return it.
That was, what was the title of that one?
This was Boot Kill.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the numbers one more time? 13?
13 would forward, 30 would return.
Okay, you folks who would not forward that, who would return that, were correct. That was not forwarded. So good job on that. It was really cool. It had some neat stuff. Once it kicked in with that kind of, somebody said Western vibe. It did. It had like an acoustic Western vibe to it in the second half. It was pretty neat, but it wasn't neat for this. And also, just in general, because it went through 2 completely different movements, the beginning was one thing and the back half was something completely and utterly different, makes it really hard for an editor to use it, not to mention so even selected. If you're a music supervisor or an editor and you're listening to that thing and you're listening to the first 5, 10, 15 seconds, which is about all it's going to get, you're going to think it's that thing. And if you think they've got the time when they're listening to, hundreds, maybe even 1,000 or more pieces of music during the course of a workday, if they just don't have the time to go, I'm going to hang out and listen to the whole thing, see if it does anything else that's interesting, because I got nothing else to do. That's magical thinking as well. Okay, moving on. Let's listen to Antipathy, which is kind of near the top. Really low in level, isn't it? This could have been the theme to Jaws if the shark swallowed a clock. Cast your votes. If you would forward that, type in a +1. If you would return it, a -1. I'm dying to see what you would say. And while you're doing that, I'm going to have me a little sip of Rockstar Revolt Killer Grape, or as we like to call it around the Lasco household, Killer Gwape. We used to know a little kid that used to say, I want another Gwape. So we've been pronouncing the word grape with a W ever since. And that was like 25 years ago. Muy refresco. Left over from the road rally. Come to next year's road rally, November 1st through the 4th, here in beautiful downtown Los Angeles, actually near the airport, in a really nice hotel. And you will get free rock stars all weekend long. Scott Hansen says it's time for a Bing hit. I'm guessing that was a typo. Seriously, Scott Hansen, someday I am flying to Cleveland just to hang out with you. I think you're hysterical. The name of that track was Antipathy, correct? These are tough. I would not want to be the screener on one of these. And remember, 224 submissions, and of the 224 submissions, 65 were forwarded. So it's not like we've got a cap and we're just forwarding the best 10 or the best 5. If it feels right for what they asked for, and the screener listening in this case, they would constantly have to remind him or herself of, could I hear this being used in a TV promo? And that's where the bar is. And personally, if I were screening, I would try and imagine, after I read the listing, before I started listening, I would try and imagine the shows that these could be used on, so that as I was listening, I could see some sort of visual and maybe hear the nature of the voiceover person. Trying to think, what's the show, the FBI behavioral unit that flies all over in the Gulfstream 5 and not CSI. I know you guys are going to get it. It's been on for probably like 7 or 8. What?
Law and Order?
No, that's been on for like 40 years. Well, this one's been on for like Criminal Minds. Thank you. I envision Criminal Minds would be the kind of show or the kind of promos. What would be in the background? Like you wouldn't use a light acoustic uplifting kind of thing for Criminal Minds. It would have to be something dark and ominous, tension creating, but it's not as forward moving as Score would be. And they didn't want drones in this. They wanted something that was kind of drone-like, but had a little forward movement so that you felt like the promo wasn't just sitting there, laying there like a lox. So what were our numbers?
11 said they would forward it, and 27 said that they would return it.
Okay, so it was 11 people would forward it, 27 they said they would return it, and it was actually forwarded. And you know what? I agree with the majority of you who said that you would not have forwarded this. Something about it didn't resonate for me. Can you play it again?
Yeah, sure.
I want to see what about it wasn't working. It wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it was well done. Somebody in the thing said remove the ticking and I would forward. I've got to agree. There are parts of it I would use, but the ticking becomes a distraction. So good call on your part. And I disagree with the screener. Okay, moving on. Let's listen to Perilous Trails, which is... See, I'm not as smart as I look, right? I can be fooled. Ed Busecker says, is that a Vanderbilt special? It is not. And that was called Perilous Trails. And cast your votes. +1 if you would forward, and -1 if you would not. There was some debate going on in the chat room while that last one was playing about the previous one with the ticking, saying, yeah, but you know, the Hans Zimmer thing had some ticking in it. And the Hans Zimmer ticking was more subtle. In this thing, you know what I do sometimes? I actually do it quite frequently, is turn the volume down to the point where it's almost nothing. and see what pops out, because a lot of times that's what's going to happen. Now, maybe not as much in promos, to be honest, but certainly in shows I find that to be the case. And if you had turned the volume down on that one, the ticking would have been all that you would have heard. It was a little loud in the mix and probably a little bright. If you had the ticking and it was at a lower register, less high end and less volume, probably would have given it the forward movement in the sense of, oh my God, something's going to happen. That was Perilous Trails, right? Yeah. Okay. Voting is still going on. Mojo. How are you, buddy? Rick JP Extra says there's so much to learn. That's why we do this every week. That's why we put on the road rally. That's why we send out the newsletter. That's why we have the forum. There is a lot to learn, and you know what? It's not like you can sit down and read a single book or go to a single class or watch a single video. It's almost a way of life. My poor wife, I know you guys who watch the show all the time have heard this 1,000 times. My wife could care less about CUES, but that poor woman has to sit there next to me on the couch in her family room watching TV with me going, did you notice, where that CUES started? Did you notice what it's accomplishing emotionally? And she's like so patient with me, but I know she just wants to take a steak knife out of a drawer and stab me in the forehead every time I do it. It's like, just can't you watch the show? But I can tell that she's actually learned. There's I don't know, it's a vibe, it's a way of life. And after a point, I mean, you never know everything, but you get to a point where you're so saturated and consumed with this stuff that it becomes kind of obvious without even using words or thought process you don't have to sit there and analyze everything. It just makes sense. And you go, yeah, I could see that would work or it wouldn't. Anyway, okay, just catching up my reading there. I'm sorry, what, numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 31 would forward it and 17 would return.
Those of you, it's funny, usually the numbers are more split and it's kind of obvious. The numbers are closer today in most cases, but this one was in fact a forward. 31 to 17. So there you go. Good job, you guys who picked that as a forward. All right, let's go to Dark Sky. Cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that for dark, ominous, tension instrumental cues needed by a non-exclusive library that's building new playlists for 2 networks for specific shows, TV promos. Would you forward that? +1 if you would not, -1. Oh man, some of this I won't repeat some of the stuff that's in the chat room, but it's pretty funny. It's not inappropriate, just people are so easily offended these days. I don't want to take any chances. Speaking of which, Scott Hansen, you, how can I say this in the nicest way? Because you know I love you, right? With your sense of humor, do you not get smacked upside the head a lot these days? I think you're hysterical, just going on record. I would love to do a road trip. And I swear, I am coming to Cleveland, and I am having dinner at your restaurant. I promise you that. I know I've been saying it for like 6 years, right? 7 years. I will. I will not disappoint you. It'd be more awesome if you could like move your restaurant to Van Nuys or something a little closer. Cleveland's a little out of the way. But I will do that. I will buy myself a plane ticket and pop for a hotel room so that I can come and have a slice of pizza, the house salad, and some of your Chianti. That one was called, what again? I lost. Dark Sky. Must have been good. My CPU is working overtime. Actually, we had our 7th anniversary show like 9 months ago or something. So we're into our 8th year of Taxi TV. And it all started out with my daughter calling me saying, Dad, it was a Saturday. I was at work. My daughter called and said, Dad, there's a bird hatching. You can watch the video feed live online. And when I went there, it was on Ustream, and there was a red button that said broadcast. And I hit the button and went, Hi, I'm Michael from Taxi. Let's talk about film and TV music. And before I knew it, I had 22 people there. So Monday morning came in and said, guess what? We're doing a TV show. Here we are. How were the votes on that one?
So 12 said that they would forward it, and 30 said that they would return.
Man, you guys are good. 12 forwards, 30 returns, and it was, in fact, a return. Okay, let me do a little inventory. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 to go. I don't think we're going to get them all in. I should shut up and just go faster. Okay, let's listen to Night Watch. So you guys were right. The majority of you were right. You would not forward that one. I am really fascinated, though, by the fact that the votes are closer together than usual. Night Watch. That was for those of you listening in stereo. Yeah, actually, Michael Mission says, Michael, you should visit Scott on a Monday and make Scott the featured guest. Absolutely. If I'm going to Cleveland to visit Scott, I'm doing it on a Monday. But you're buying dinner, just letting you know now, Hanson. Okay, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that one, and -1 if you would not. That was called Night Watch. Look at that. They're voting already. Wow. A lot of conviction in those votes. All right, I'll wait till the weather's nice. Yeah, I'm not flying to Cleveland in wintertime. I've actually been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We had a member who, his name escapes me, super nice guy. He's an attorney in Cleveland, and I was doing a tour of like little mini road rallies, like a one-man 3 or 4 hour thing in cities all over the country. And when I went to Cleveland, he picked me up either at my hotel or the airport, and we spent the afternoon at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Excuse me, and it was awesome. I loved it. Okay, and the numbers are?
40 said they would forward it, and 3 said that they would return it.
All right, well, you 3 that said you'd return it, you're big fat losers. Sorry, you know I don't really mean that from the heart. But yeah, 40 people, you were right. It was forwarded. So there you go. Not such an even split. You know, I could actually tell by the velocity, the speed at which those votes were rolling in. Okay, let's move on to Raining Bells. And that's raining as in precipitation. New clappers. All right, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that for dark, ominous, tension instrumental cues for TV promos on 2 different networks, or -1 if you would not forward that. And that one's called Raining Bells. Okay, making progress. Wow, again with the high velocity voting. If everybody voted this quickly in presidential elections, we could all go to bed sooner. Wow, somebody's screen name is Silicon Valley Realtor. My hat's off to you, because 6% of the prices of houses in Silicon Valley, insane. I know somebody just bought a small house for $2.4 million in the valley. That's crazy. We could get a medium-sized house for that in Los Angeles. Steve Pullman, you never answered my question if you're related to Ken Pullman, who teaches head of the audio engineering department at the University of Miami. Dying to know. All right, we've got numbers, and they are.
8 said that they would forward it, and 42 said that they would return it.
All right, you guys are getting with the program. It was not forwarded, so the majority of you, 42 of you, got that one right. Again, certainly not a bad cue, just not right. And we do like to keep things organized. For those of you who have never watched the show before, and maybe you're learning about what Taxi does for the first time, just understand that we're not trying to be strict so much as we want to give the industry folks what they ask for, so that they go, awesome, somebody's actually filtered this stuff that I needed, that I requested. They found me stuff that's in the zone of what I needed and is of high quality. I'm going to go back to that well for more music over and over and over again. So, you know, if we go, well, that was really cool, so we're going to forward it anyway, and every third thing that they listen to in the batch of stuff we send them doesn't really line up with what they need, they're going to be very trepidatious about ever requesting music from us again. So we're not doing it to be jerks, but we're careful in what we forward because we want to keep them coming back for more of your music. Oh, by the way, I had a record set today, which I will tell you about in a moment. It was probably the all-time record. So, I'm sorry, we did that one already. They got it right. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about this unusual record. I got an email today from a friend of mine who owns a very good music library, has gotten a lot of placements for our members over a very long period of time, easily 10 years or more. And this person, notice I'm being careful not to say if it's a man or a woman. This person said, I'm trying to reach out to a Taxi member that I got music from because I think I can place a particular piece of music I got from that member, and I don't have any contact information, which I thought was weird because we supply the name, the song title, the email address, and the phone number with every piece of music that we send to every one of our clients. So I said, sure, no problem. Being the helpful company that we are, we did a little research, and we found out that this member had actually been a Taxi member 9 years, or got a refund. They were not happy with their membership 9 years ago and got a refund from us. And I'll bet you anything the reason that the person wasn't happy was because their music was forwarded and they never heard anything from the company it was forwarded to until today. 9 years. To the best of my knowledge, that's a new world record here at Taxi after being in business for 26 years now. I've never heard of anybody being reached out to 9 years after the music was sent to the company. Just goes to show you that it is absolutely a marathon, rarely a sprint, and that you just have to believe in the system. That if we're forwarding your music, it doesn't by any stretch of the imagination mean that you're guaranteed a deal, but it just goes to show you that you want to plant as many seeds in as many gardens as you can. Some of those seeds are going to sprout in the spring, some of them are going to sprout in the fall, some of them are going to sprout 9 years later. So never give up hope. Yes, I did find him. And I made a point of telling the client that when you get a hold of this gentleman, make sure you tell him that Michael Lasko, the CEO of Taxi, got you connected. Enjoy your refund, sucker. Do I hold a grudge? Yeah, probably. Anyway, okay, moving on. Let's listen to Amino. Sounds Latin. cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that, -1 if you would not. Somebody just commented, Mark Watson, the mastering levels of these cues fluctuates wildly. It does, and it proves something that we've talked about many, many, many times in the show, which is I know there is no perfect system for getting all levels of all things to match all the time. Obviously, things like the dynamics of a piece, and this stuff's pretty not dynamic, anti-dynamic. I can't think of the right word. What?
Undynamic.
Undynamic. Very, very good, Bria. Your parents, wherever you got educated, really paid off today. Oh. Undynamic. That was almost as good as mine. I don't know what the word is. Anyway, the opposite of dynamic. What's my point? Yeah, stuff that's more dynamic tends to come across a little louder. It's got more transients in it and stuff. Stuff that is drone-like kind of lays there, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they should all be approximately the same volume, yet they're not. So I would recommend that you go to forums with an S, forums.taxi.com, and go in there and meet other taxi members and ask them what they do to determine their levels. Because the stuff that we play on the show, it's not like we're farting around with knobs and buttons when we bounce it over to be played on the show. Whatever levels it is at is how it comes here. Now imagine if you are looking to sign music and you're getting stuff in, and 80 or 90% of it is at one level, and then one thing is way down. You're not going to reach over in a lot of cases and turn up the volume. It also kind of says rookie mistake. So, yeah, get your levels together. That one was called Amino, and the numbers were... Oh, did I say... I didn't say vote, so they didn't vote? Or... Oh, she's tabulating. Sorry. Static. There you go, Glenn Johnson. Linear. Man, you guys are good. The opposite. Scott Hansen, the opposite of dynamic. What is Nickelback? Oh, Scott.
I have your numbers now.
Okay.
Okay, so 23 said that they would forward it, and 20 said they would return.
Interesting. Okay, so by a hair, it wins in the forward column, and it was in fact forwarded. I could hear that one being used in promos personally. Okay, let's move on to the unknown. All right, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that, -1 if you would not. I'm sorry, I didn't put a circle on my page. What was that one called? The unknown, right?
Yes.
And the score at this point is also unknown. Do you schlep your cats all over the world with you, Anna? How do they deal with that? Interesting observations on that one. Curious to see what the tally is. I just realized, you know, when you're sick, especially when you've got like an ear infection going on, which I do, you hear your own voice more in your head. It's like when you do this, in a world. So that's what I'm hearing as I'm talking to you guys today. I keep going in and out, probably depending on where the fluids are in my ear canal at the time. But I'm getting this, like, sometimes I'm a voiceover guy, sometimes I sound like I'm 7. And the numbers are?
So 17 said that they would forward it, and 21 said that they would return.
All right, we have an almost split decision. It was, in fact, forwarded, and 17 said they would forward it, so you guys are correct. The 21 who said they would return it or not forward it. Didn't agree with the screener on that one. I personally, somebody said it didn't sound all that ominous. It didn't. I mean, it could have been a little more ominous, but I do remember thinking this would work well for promos for that kind of show. So I would have voted with the screener on that one, but I would have been like stretching my own thing a little. Okay, moving on to evidential stat. Evidential stat, and cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that, -1 if you would not. Michael Mishna says he thinks the group is about 10 or 11 for 13. I think you're about right on that. Scott Hansen wants to know, is Hillary Clinton counting the votes on this too? I'm not going anywhere near that, but boy, I've got a great one-liner. I'm just keeping my mouth shut. Um, I would say for the 7 years that we've been doing the show, I think only once did the audience, in total, come up differently than the screeners. Mike Cirasulo says, I'm sorry, Steve Nickel, music says, not that close to the refs. There's definitely, I will admit this publicly. There's nothing to admit. I will talk about it publicly. There's an art. When you're looking at taxis listings, we ask all the listing parties if they can give us references, and you would be mortified at how often their references don't line up with even the genre, let alone the description of what they're giving us. So we have to work with them and kind of pull it out of them to get more clarification, not only for you guys, but for the screeners as well. We want everybody on the same page knowing all the same stuff. We don't, sometimes people say, did the screeners have inside information? Do they know more than we do? 99.9% of the time, no. There are some cases where the screener might be screening for somebody that they are working with in the industry, and maybe they know that person's kind of taste, so they may infuse that, but they're not facts. You know what I mean? There's not actual factual stuff that we're hiding from you or keeping, just for the screeners to know. We can't do that. It wouldn't be fair to you guys. Really difficult for the screeners to work that way. So sometimes you may hear that two of the references are close and paint a pretty clear picture of what's needed, and the third one may be different, and to some people that's confusing. To other people, they go, oh, I get it. Kind of represents a range of what could happen. They're not always looking, rarely are they looking for stuff that's, wow, just like those references. The references are there to get you in a ballpark in most cases, and if the situation or circumstance is different, we will put some effort into letting you know that it's a different circumstance. We'll tell you that they're trying to replace something that was temped in, but we also have to be careful there that they're not that we're not giving you an instruction that says copy what was temped in. Sometimes for legal reasons they don't want you to copy it, and sometimes the music supervisor may hear it differently than the executive producer. So even though something was temped in and there is temp love on the part of the executive producer, the supervisor is going, not too close, you know what I mean? So it's a strange little game that we have to play. Just know that we are always looking out for you guys and doing our best to give you the most correct information we can. Our goal is to focus your energy into hitting the target so that we can forward you for the thing. And the numbers are?
So 4 said that they would forward it, and 36 said that they would return it.
All right, and those of you who said you would return it are right on the money, and that was a pretty big spread. And there were some things about that cue that I really liked. It just didn't sound like it was right. I can't remember if it was this one or one that we just heard recently, but there's one that I thought this would be great for shows. I think it was this one. Like, I could hear this being used in a scene in NCIS, but it wouldn't work well for promos for something that was dark and ominous. So it's not like it's bad, it's just not right. All right, moving on. Let's listen to, I think you pronounce this Shriek? S-H, it's not Shrek or
No, it's
okay,
not
like
Shrek.
Shrek. No, I know it's not Shrek, because that'd be in green. But I was thinking of sheikh, like a Saudi Arabian sheikh. But,
Shriek.
Shriek. Yeah, for some reason I'm thinking shriek should be like... Oh, well. Did I do well in spelling? No. What did the teacher do? Made me kneel on pencils. lot of times I'm just nodding just to make you feel better. Bria faded that one early because it was really long. Oh, applause. Just because it was faded early doesn't mean we can't give it a little applause there. Okay, cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that, -1 if you would not. And that one was called Shriek. Or as Mojo Bone called it, Shake Your Booty. That's what was messing me up, dude. +1 if you would forward, -1 if you would not. It's like we have our own little dysfunctional family that shows up every week for the show. Oh, man. I think maybe next year's road rally I should have like the Taxi TV regulars hangout night, you know, somewhere. We should get a private room. Somebody can't breathe. Is that a heart attack? Should we call 911 or did somebody say something funny? Peter Rahill's telling Marion to cast an absentee ballot. She's got some buffering going on, has no idea what the hell's happening. Man, if I were as wealthy as people think that I am, Marion, I would buy you like a whole new system because it's been like years of buffering for you. I feel bad for you. All right, and the votes are in, and they are, hold on.
11 said that they would forward it, and 23 said that they would return it.
Okay, so it's 11 to 23. The 23 people said they would return it are the winners because it was in fact returned. Okay, let's listen to House Try 1. This is dark and ominous, right? Bria's dancing like Diane from Seinfeld over there. That's right, now we have Casey. All right, we'll fade this one early because it's obviously not a forward. Still interesting. It had some good qualities to it. Somebody said, Ken DePotter said it had the mid to up tempo part correct. All right, we're not even counting the votes on that one, right? Okay. So House Try 1, I'm just going to put 0-0. Okay, there we go. Some people are voting anyway. Go ahead, cast your votes. But we've only got a minute left. I've still got more to play. So let's move on. Let's listen to one called Judgment. And this is by a gentleman who actually flew out here, if I'm not mistaken, about 4 years ago. This gentleman was a little upset with the screeners. He said, I'd like to come out there and sit down and get trained as a screener and screen alongside the screeners so that I can better understand your system. And I think he came out maybe loaded for bear, and by the end of the day, he was like, wow, I get it. And I actually had him later that day after he did the screening. We had him on an episode of Taxi TV because, I mean, it could have gone the way that he, I think, was kind of hoping it would go, which, man, your screeners don't know what they're doing. So I was taking a bit of a risk by having him on the show, but it all worked out well, and he was a nice man. I just saw part of that show the other day, and I remembered liking him. So let's listen to that piece, which is called Judgment. Cast your votes. +1 if you would forward that for ominous, dark music for TV cues as opposed to a show. Remember, there is a difference. If you start paying attention, you'll notice. Go to YouTube after tonight's episode and Google or search within YouTube for TV promos for shows that you know are dark and ominous in nature, and it'll be pretty eye-opening. Self-evidentiary. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Stuff will be obvious to you. Okay, that one was called Judgment. Let's see how your votes go. End the show with a bong. We can do that out here now. I personally have never tried this stuff, nor have I ever inhaled when I did. Boom. Yeah, you know, a lot of the cues were virtually everything we're hearing tonight. This just goes to show you almost every episode now when we do listening sessions like this, the music, the forwards and the returns are all pretty darn good. 5 years ago, I mean, there were times where we'd all be going, oh, you know, it was just like a little embarrassing. Anyway, Bria's tabulating as we speak. Smoke coming out of her ears.
All right.
And the numbers are?
9 said that they would forward it, and 21 said that they would return it.
Okay, 9 would forward, 21 would return. Those of you who said you would return it voted with the screener on that one. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff in that one, but it wasn't really right. Okay, I don't know. I mean, we're going to be here till 6 o'clock. Let's see. I'm going to go with, let's go with Corner Basement, near the top. Cast your votes. +1 if you would forward, -1 if you would not. Silicon Valley Realtor says, Mike, would you mind adding a sentence or two as to why something's rejected or accepted? Seems like a lot of split decisions from us out here. I just want to learn. Honestly, I don't know what was in the screener's mind at the time. If I had the critique forms for each one of these here, I could probably get closer to that. But that would be way more work than we could do on the show and still get the show done in a reasonable amount of time, which by YouTube standards we already go way long. And the split decisions, there's a lot of stuff that, put it this way, on the whole, you guys got it right. There were a few that were very, very close. Actually, I stand corrected on that. There was one that was 21-26, another that was 23-20, but most of them were like 42-7, 40/3, 31-17, 6-38, 13-30. Bria's counting 4-36. So there weren't that many. You know, I mean, it's not like everybody who votes is right. It's subjective. Okay.
So 20 said that they would forward it, and 10 said that they would return it.
All right. So there you go. 20 would forward that one, 10 would return it. You guys who said you would forward it voted with the screener again. You guys are good. Gotta say. All right, let's do one more, and then we're going to call it a night because we are 8 minutes over. I could hang out and do this all night, but, you know, I can't. Okay, this one is called Dark Insurgent. I love the title on that one. I'm sorry to laugh in the middle of that track, but Scott Hansen said something wonderfully inappropriate as always, and it was hysterical. I don't want to encourage him, though. Are you married, Scott? That woman deserves some sort of award. Mrs. Hansen, got your hands full. Okay, that was called, where did it go? I totally lost it.
Dark Insurgent.
Oh yeah, Dark Insurgent. +1 if you would forward, -1 if you would not. I can't wait to come to Cleveland and meet your wife, Scott. She's a very special lady. Oh, by the way, while you guys are voting, somebody said that their sister was a producer on, what was the Darkest Hour? And asked if my wife and I had seen it. We actually went to the movie together, And then my wife got a semi-emergency phone call from our daughter who lives on the other side of the world. So she ducked out of the theater for about 25 minutes beginning of the movie. So I looked at my watch and said, okay, we're going to catch this another night together, and scooted over to the movie theater next door that was just starting a different film that I can't remember the name of now, that was weird but kind of good. So we haven't seen The Darkest Hour in total yet, but from everything I hear, it was spectacular. And Gary Oldman, from the little bit that I saw, it was astonishingly impressive. That was acting. Okay, so the numbers, or we're still getting votes, sorry. Yes, and don't forget, Taxi TV friends, on tomorrow night's episode of NCIS New Orleans, they'll be featuring one of my songs, Baby Don't You Love Me No More, starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So watch the show, hear one of your fellow members in context. By the way, people keep asking all night, do we save the whole thing? YouTube doesn't let you save the entire chat room. Back in the day when we were on Ustream, I could go highlight the whole thing and do a copy paste afterwards, but can't do that. It only saves like the last 5 minutes or something on YouTube, so sorry. And the numbers were?
20 would forward it and 1 would return it.
All right. We'll go 28 forward, 1 return, and you guys who picked forward for that were correct. I've got to say, that was probably my favorite one of the entire night, and I hadn't heard it up until when you guys heard it, but that absolutely sounded like something that would be used for a TV promo to me. It was just instantly obvious, so good job on that. Good job to all you guys. Even the stuff that wasn't like on the money was still really good. Bria's holding up a sign. Podcast. Okay. Yes. By the way, for those of you who want to listen to something educational on your way home from work when you're stuck in a subway or a car in traffic, we do have this show done as a podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Google Play,
Stitcher, and now
TuneIn. So we probably have like a year's worth of these already up there, right?
Yeah.
And we know that easily 100 people a week, which I know not big numbers in the land of the internet, but this is something that translates well to a podcast. So check it out. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the show. Don't forget to like us, and most importantly, hit that share button. Send it to your wife. Send it to Scott Hansen's wife. Lord knows the woman deserves something, right? All right. Oh, and don't forget, please go right now to the Taxi Facebook page. Go to Facebook and look for Taxi Independent A&R, right? Is that how we're listed there? And give me some ideas for next week's show. Don't just ask for, something that could be answered in 10 minutes. I need a show's worth of stuff. I'm looking forward to your input. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. We will see you dudes and dudettes next week for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye, you guys.